Senator Whitehouse is, I think, joined us by WebEx. Sheldon, you're out there somewhere. Please join us. You're recognized.
Yes, I am, and thank you. I'm delighted to have this terrific panel of witnesses. I wanted to talk first about coastal infrastructure. And Governor Whitmer, Michigan counts because the way we define coastal includes our Great Lakes. But it's estimated that coastal communities are going to need to invest more than $400 billion in the next 20 years. And that's based on our present very conservative and probably inadequate estimates of the damage that climate change portends through sea level rise and extreme weather. This is a new and very alarming demand for these local communities. And as we look around at the places for support for coastal communities, we look at things, particularly in this committee, like the Army Corps of Engineers Flood and Coastal Damage Reduction Fund. And what we see in the last decade is that in our best year, $19 went inland for every single dollar that went to coasts. That was our best year in the last decade. In our worst year, $120 went inland for every single dollar that went to coasts. Everybody's familiar with the Land and Water Conservation Fund. That has a less egregious but similar bias towards inland and upland projects over coastal projects. CoreLogic has done its 2020 storm surge report, and it estimates that over 7 million single-family homes are at risk of storm surge in the US, and that the cost to rebuild those homes would exceed $1.7 trillion. So we have a big coastal problem on our hands. It is a coastal problem that we are ignoring. The chairman comes from a state that is similar in size to Rhode Island and has even lower topography. So Delaware and Rhode Island share a very strong concern about these issues. And we were able to get into the last highway bill that came out of our committee unanimously some very good work on coastal infrastructure, because it's not just going to be homes that are flooded, it's also going to be infrastructure. And where the infrastructure goes, you can also lose homes and access to emergency services to homes. And so it's a big problem. And I would like to ask the governors to comment on what they see as the needs in their states to protect coasts. I think Maryland is more immediately affected because of the oceans problem, but Michigan and the Great Lakes have their own issues as well.
Thank you very much, Senator. Thanks for raising the issue. A lot of the discussion around climate change is about mitigation and about clean air, and not enough, I think, discussion about how we mitigate some of the problems that are going to be caused by flooding, and as you just touched on very eloquently, the coastal flooding issue. We did touch on this, and a lot of our focus was on transportation infrastructure during the NGA initiative, but we did talk about resiliency and trying to address some of these issues. And in our state, along with, like Governor Whitmer said earlier, we've made great strides in with respect to climate change. We have cleaner air standards than 49 other states. We put tax credits in for electric vehicles and charging stations, and taking a lot of actions on mass transit to get people off the roads. But this is one we have invested some dollars in, but you're right, there's been not enough funding. It's something we do have to address as you're looking at infrastructure. Coastal flood, not just coastal flooding, but further upstream flooding is going to occur as well. And as a small coastal state adjacent to the chairman's state of Delaware, it's obviously an issue and a concern for us with the Chesapeake Bay, which is one of America's greatest natural resources. It's an issue that we deal with, and I'll pass it on to my colleague to weigh in, but it's an important issue we have to address.
Yeah, thanks, Governor Hogan and Governor Whitehouse. Thank you so much for the question. I think that it's really important. And I'm glad that you highlighted the coastline in Michigan. We have 3,200 miles of coastline in Michigan, all fresh water. 21% of the world's fresh water is in and around the Great Lakes. So this is something that we take very seriously, and we have seen the impact of climate change. We need to address this through resilient infrastructure. High water levels have eroded our shorelines and washed away roadways, and we've had devastating flooding in communities that have forced evacuations. We had to evacuate 10,000 people in Midland, Michigan. That wasn't along the Great Lakes, but it was just another example of the need for resilient infrastructure because it washed out a number of dams and bridges when that 500-year flooding event happened. So whether it is in Texas or it is in the freshwater coastline of Michigan or along the nation's borders with all across the country, this is something that is of critical importance. You know, when we see high water levels that are eroding our shorelines, they're impacting everything from our drinking water to just our ability to, you know, conduct life and be safe in doing that. And so we have got, I think, a lot of needs in this area, but there's no question that resilient infrastructure along the coastlines is an important part of the overarching problem that we're hopeful that you will help us address.
And Mr. Chairman, I am probably close to out of time, if not completely out of time. So let me just let Governor Whitmer know that as the Fix the Damn Roads governor and as the auto governor, with GM having made these commitments to going to all electric vehicles, we have in the bill that we passed significant support for electronic vehicle charging infrastructure. And we're eagerly trying to get tax support for electronic vehicle charging infrastructure. And as you know, it's going to be a very bad thing for GM if they commit to electric vehicles and we haven't built the infrastructure to charge those electric vehicles. So we are on the case, but we need your help and the help of our Republican colleagues to make sure that that all gets done aggressively and energetically.